You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into...
Pseudoscience of Projective Testing in Psychology, presented by Jacob Lee Holtz.
What is a projective test, you may ask? A projective test is a personality test designed to let a person respond to ambiguous stimuli, presumably revealing hidden emotions and internal conflicts projected by the person onto the test. For the coming projects, I will be researching a certain area of psychology. My topic of choice follows projective testing. These tests include ones such as Rorschach ink blots, the Lusher color test, the Draw a Person test, and more. With some insight of these tests, I understand they are exams to analyze one's personality. Personally, I and possibly others have participated in these tests to identify certain traits or characteristics that may be hidden. Tests such as the House Tree Person test that I took part of once before, which identifies different views of how someone may draw themselves in a certain environment. I do understand how pseudosciences may be associated with this area of research, though I assume I can find plenty of science and evidence backing these well-respected tests in relations to identifying personality correctly. With my personal belief of these psychological assessments of hidden emotion to be the best available technique, I think the pseudoscience and critics of these tests won't match or even compare to the evidence in years of compiled data and diagnostics of these projective tests. But let's take a step back real quick. It's 1921 now, and Swiss psychiatrist Hermann Rorschach has just brought out the first test believed and in goal to be able to diagnose schizophrenia based off different patterns in ink blots' calculated degree of ambiguity. And no, this is not Brad Pitt. The test, known as Rorschach's ink blot test, is usually consisted of about 10 pictures. Each photo holds a different pattern or ink blot, hence the name. The goal of the test is to see how others identify and interpret certain patterns of the ink blots. Rorschach theorized that it is important how a patient understands and perceives the ink blot, not how he sees it. In the video featured above, Damian Searles of TED Talk presented this video of Rorschach in 2019.
Using his ink blot paintings, Rorschach began quizzing hundreds of healthy subjects and psychiatric patients with the same question: what might this be? However, it wasn't what the test subjects saw that was most important to Rorschach, but rather how they approached the task. Which parts of the image did they focus on or ignore? Did they see the image moving? Did the color on some ink blots help them give better answers, or distract and overwhelm them? He developed a system to code people's responses, reducing the wide range of interpretations to a few manageable numbers. Now he had empirical measures to quantify all kinds of test takers: the creative and imaginative, the detail-oriented, the big picture perceivers, and flexible participants able to adapt their approach. Some people would get stuck, offering the same answer for multiple blots. Others gave unusual and delightful descriptions. Responses were as varied as the ink blots, which offered different kinds of perceptual problems, some easier to interpret than others. But analyzing the test taker's overall approach yielded real insights into their psychology. And as Rorschach tested more and more people, patterns began to pile up.
Patterns and data are what create the strong evidence backing projective testing, especially with a plentiful variety of tests available in psychology to identify the hidden emotion of an individual. Like mentioned before, and aside from ink blot testing, plenty of other psychological and self-reporting tests exist, all providing some type of spontaneous personality outcomes. In the House Tree Person test, the candidate is asked to draw an image of a house, tree, and person, once again, hence the name of the test. The administrator then asks roughly about 60 questions, ranging from who lives here to is the person living there happy. These illustrations, of course, will vary from person to person, as individuals are flexible, behavior is influenced by many variables which differ from one situation to the next, according to Gertrude R. Schmeidler of City College of the City University of New York. Schmeidler, who was previously mentioned, took part in organizing 50 male and female college students to participate in this type of test. 50 students role-played in 2 different environments and situations. One normal role they had experience with, and another with little experience, with emphasis on a stressful and anxiety-filled event. After each student did their drawing after partaking in each role, a pattern was discovered. Observed is that most students did not have flexibility between roles as their drawings demonstrated. More than half of the subjects, male and female, drew droopy trees and closed-top trees. That represented possible gloom, definitely not happiness though, or excitement, unlike the original drawings found when they participated in roles they were familiar with. As this finding was alarming, this test still found limited due to the no expression of other areas of personality. Flexibility of an individual was seen to flow strong through almost all the subjects, though some of the areas to have marked different, like the moods of the person drawn or the house. Role-playing seems a useful adjunct to the usual single test administration, Epstein of 1980. For further information and complete findings of this research project, please refer to Role-Playing and Personality Changes in House Tree Persons Drawing by Gertrude R. Schmeidler. On the topic of limitations, and along with the centuries worth of recorded history of projective tests, once again Rorschach being the first, comes the current and past beliefs of the topic, projective testing. Currently, projective testing of all types is still used widely in psychoanalysis, though controversy over the accuracy and bias associated with the testing have run parallel. According to Meyer and Kurtz of 2006, in the interest of advancing the science of personality assessment, we believe it is time to end this historical practice and retire these terms from our lexicon and general disclosure describing the methods of personality assessment. In summary of this argument, they refer to the inaccuracy in the examinee inputting their own judgment while in the process of gathering the info, then completing the project with the bias-tainted results. In opposition, though, to this current projective testing, they suggest self-report measures, and that test should be personalized individually per subject and should be performance-based.
Keep the room quiet when we're working. But we're not quiet all of the time.
You're not?
No, we know there are times and places to be quiet, and other times and places when we can make noise if we want to.
Other strong limitations include geographical differences and cultural differences. Following the geographical limits of projective testing and referring back to the House Tree Person test, French of 1989 tested children of Midwest Native American tribes and compared them to the average suburban American image drawn, and the results were drastically different. The norm for the community kids, or the suburban Americans, created triangle-roofed square-body houses. On the other hand, the tribal-bound children seemed to create and draw sheds of some sort, and trees no taller than a bush. French drew a connection between this and inkblot cards 8 to 10 in Rorschach. One may see sandstone cliffs or other cultural and geographical icons that may not be clearly explained in barriers such as the English language. Featured here is one of the suburban American houses that was illustrated. And here's a possible representation of the Native American illustration. With these differences and limitations to projective testing, fallacies also come about. One fallacy that is clear between geographical and cultural status is an abusive ad hominem argument. This fallacy is defined as a response to a person's argument by attacking their character rather than the logic or content of the argument. Other differences that may come into play relating to these limitations and fallacy include economic status, race, political affiliation, and more. Aside from any more fallacies present in projective testing, another limit and critique of its true science is its validity. The Rorschach was heavily promoted and used consistently in the psychological community due to its seemingly consistent validity and public privacy on how the test was conducted, the norm results, and more.
Don't get inside us. We're going to take a look at that ego. While we're at it,
Though the copyright to this test, the Rorschach, soon expired and anything in regard to Rorschach became public domain. Now, with a simple few clicks around the internet, you may access the instrument and learn all about how it is scored, how an examiner may interpret one subject's answers, and more.
First, you got to take this simple test. Now, this is the well-known inkblot test. I'm going to show you this design, and I want you to tell me what it looks like. Well, let me see. All right, not so bad. I just want you to tell me the first thing that comes into your mind. Just say anything you think of, okay? Are you ready? That's a bat. Wrong. So wrong. Any normal person can see that's a butterfly. Butterfly, huh? If it is, it's a mean one. Well, there's your...
As we can understand, certain forms of projective testing may be applicable if you go by average responses of a specific sample. Though, one who identifies projective testing as a pseudoscience will counter most likely by saying there will never be a true determinant of an individual matching societal norms due to the variety of cultures, geographies, and experiences. Each individual is entitled to an opinion, and results from the personality test may affect their position and perspective depending on the subject's biases or even the person administering the test biases. The strongest forms of invalidity of projective testing, which back the idea of it being a pseudoscience, include mainly its consistency of results. Administering different tests, even if hosted by the same individual, may cause major harm to the results if the test administrator holds a certain bias against the patient taking the test. Bias can also arise from the definition of normal. Like mentioned throughout, finding the norm of a sample is almost impossible because every individual holds different experiences or some other type of status or characteristic. In conclusion, projective testing is heavily backed in the science and psychology community. With limited authors attempting to find the pseudoscience related to projective testing, most who do try promoting its invalidity and inaccuracy when collecting its data. Since many types of projective tests exist, I placed more of a focus on specific tests, as you saw, to lighten the result load when searching for peer-reviewed articles relating to the testing. The more famous one and widely used and accepted is ink block testing, such as the Rorschach or Holtz. In my search, I collected articles from reputable publishers such as Springer and authors who had strong backgrounds, like Margaret Rosenberg Hertz, 1899 to 1992. She was an American psychologist who specialized in the Rorschach test. She graduated from Hunter College in 1918 and obtained her PhD from Western Reserve University in 1932.